This Sunday, the 20th of October 2024, and my guest tonight is Shauna Blaney, an English teacher starting her third year in a post primary school here in Northern Ireland. Shauna and I will be talking about the benefits and potential pitfalls of taking on additional challenges early in a teaching career. Okay, welcome to the show. As I said, I'm going to be talking to Shauna about challenges and how taking on additional challenges early in a teaching career can be beneficial, as you can learn a lot from them, but also they could quickly become overwhelming. And we don't want to put people off, especially at the beginning of their careers. One challenge I will be facing tonight is the fact that Storm Ashley is still making its way across Northern Ireland and it is reaching levels outside of being so blustery that I'm hoping we can make it through the show without the whole house taking off like the farmhouse at the beginning of The Wizard of Oz. I am armed with a small dog just in case, but I'm not entirely convinced that my Hugo would be as adventurous as Toto. Anyway, let's start by clarifying what we mean by challenges. Starting in any new career can be challenging, and obviously, teaching is no different. There are challenges that we all expect and that we worry about during our teacher training. Things like, what do I do if I ask a student to do something and they just flat out refuse? Or what happens if a student asks me a question and I don't know the answer? Or how do I deal with an angry parent or a disclosure or a safeguarding concern about a child? These are the things that are challenges for everybody as they start. Some of these challenges lessen for a lot of teachers once they're established in a school or in their career, but others might remain challenges. Tonight, we'll talk about facing these types of challenges, but also moving out of our comfort zone as teachers and taking on additional challenges like leading a subject or a year group, teaching outside our specialism, competing additional CPD or furthering our own education while teaching, taking on extracurricular clubs, planning events. All sorts of challenges can present themselves, or opportunities. We'll consider how taking on these types of challenges early in a teaching career can be beneficial, but also how it could become overwhelming and put teachers off staying in teaching if they try to, or even worse, feel pressured into taking on too much at the beginning of their careers when they're still finding their feet as a teacher. Well, my guest tonight, Shauna Blaney, is here to talk through these ideas with me and to discuss if there's ever a right time to take on extra challenges. So, Shauna, I think you are here with us in the room. Is that right?
Yes, I am. Thank you for having me, Amanda.
Thank you so much for coming on tonight, Shauna. I am really looking forward to this. Shauna is perfect because, as I mentioned at the beginning, you're the beginning of your third year of teaching, isn't that right?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
So not a newly qualified teacher. You've got some experience, but still fairly early in your career. So you're an absolute perfect person here to give us all some insight on this topic.
I
So
hope so anyway.
oh, you absolutely are. So, we're really looking forward to hearing what you have to say. Do you want to tell us a little bit then about the situation you're in at the moment? So, you've moved schools and you're leading subjects, isn't that right?
Yes, so this is my third year out, so I'm actually in my third school as well. This year I'm teaching English, which is my main subject, but I'm also leading drama and performing arts. I did get experience of this last year in my previous school, but it's completely different when you have a leader and a head of department to follow to then stepping into a role where you don't have that and you have all these other responsibilities, internal and external deadlines that you need to make sure that you're sticking to
Oh, absolutely. As you say, trying to do that then without
without
the aid
the
of.
guidelines of someone who's been doing it for years.
Yes, so a lot there that you are taking on already, and just doing your PGCE and your degree wasn't
Mhm.
enough for you. Sure, it wasn't. You've taken on additional courses as well.
Yes, well, my undergraduate degree was media studies and production, and then COVID struck, and I was like, what am I gonna do? I wasn't sure what pathway to go down. And then I spent the year during COVID studying then an English masters, and then I went in then to teaching English then in Coleraine University.
So you're obviously not scared of a challenge.
No, clearly not. Yes, but no, I have enjoyed it, and it's definitely it was meant to be. I wouldn't look back and go into anything else now.
Oh, well, that's brilliant. That's exactly what we like to hear. And you're considering as well in the future doing further masters, isn't that right?
Yes, hoping to do a master's around pastoral care and leadership with Ulster University. So whenever I completed my PGCE, I have credits gained through it. So it means I don't have to complete as many modules, but it's a way to, secure and maybe have a look into the pastoral side of teaching and just getting more information maybe into leadership roles further down in my career.
So if you're thinking about that already, then definitely you are someone who is ambitious coming into teaching and you're looking to see, okay, pastorally, what can I do to support
Yeah.
the students in my care? And also leadership, what can I do to support my own career?
Yes, definitely. I think when you are in the classroom, you have that time with the students and you build these relationships. And I think you do then get this sense where you want to help them further. And for me, I think, well, in school, there's the two routes you could go down. There's the curriculum path or there's the pastoral. But for me, I would definitely be more pastoral with my background. And I just, I like supporting the students in any way I can.
Oh, that's brilliant. And that will actually fit in very well with some of the comments that I've received from other teachers on this topic as well, in terms of
Oh,
facing challenges and taking things on. So that will fit in very nicely. If we go then from the very beginning,
hmm.
what made you want to go into teaching in the first place?
Um, it was definitely my media teacher. I say this every time. I'm asked why I wanted to be a teacher. I actually, before I decided to go into teaching, I took a few months and I went in and I kind of shadowed what she was doing in the classroom. So this was after I'd left school. I think it was maybe my third year at uni. During my undergraduate course, I kind of went in and I was kind of shadowing her in the classroom. And I, when she was teaching me as a student, she just always blew me away. She always had our attention from the beginning of the lesson right through. And even during that time, she had so many other roles within the school. So she had that ambitious background. She was always pushing us to do more in school. So I think just having that encouragement as a child and a student, whenever I was growing up, I kind of wanted to be that for someone else and for them to look back and think, oh, well, it was actually maybe Miss Delaney that pushed me to do this, or back in school, they remember these memories in class and what happened. So yeah, it was my media teacher.
That's fantastic. I hope she knows the
Yeah.
difference then that she's made for you. Did you notice whenever you went back in, as you say, you were a third year uni student,
Hmm.
did you notice additional challenges that your media studies teacher was facing that you maybe didn't notice when you were a student?
You definitely do see a background, especially at break time and lunchtime. Whenever I got talking to her, I remember I think she was a good few years out, because she was I think in SLT. But I remember she was applying for a higher role in the school again. I think it was maybe a VP role. And I remember her completing the application form. She was getting worried about the interview, but we would have never got that from her in the classroom. So even her being out so many years and still having these nerves, it kind of made her seem more relatable and more like a human. I think some people see teachers as like robots and they aren't actually human. And they have their worries. But even as a teacher who'd been out for so many years, she still had her worries filling out this application form and was talking me through it. And I was like, I was nearly impressed by it because I was like, oh my word, you've been out teaching maybe say 20 years and you still have those worries coming through when you're applying for other roles in the school.
I think seeing that more would be so helpful because
Yeah.
it takes a lot. You know, you are making yourself vulnerable. You're showing, look, this is something that I find nerve wracking. This is something that I'm finding challenging. But it takes away maybe some of the imposter syndrome for other people who are just starting out to go, do you know what? It's okay to be nervous about this. Other people also get nervous, even when I know this person's really good at her job.
Mhm. I know, because starting out, I definitely had imposter syndrome. I thought, "How am I gonna know enough subject knowledge?" You know, classroom management, whenever I was starting out, I was only, what, 5 years older than my A-level class, and I was like, "How can I sit here and tell you what to do for your A-levels when I only went through this about 5 years ago?"
Oh, I know. Do you know,
I
my first experience of teaching was part of my degree. Because my undergrad, I did a joint degree in English literature and Spanish.
Mhm.
So the third year was I spent my third year working in a Spanish high school in Valencia in Spain. And,
Oh, wow.
I was 20 and some of my students were 19. And then there was a
Oh, that's
secretarial
mad.
class that I taught. And because all weirdly, I was having to teach a secretarial class, an adult class, because all of their books were in English rather than the books being translated. They all had to
Mhm.
learn English. But anyway, I was teaching a group of people, some of whom were older than me, as well as then teaching people who were 11 but spoke amazing English. And I felt so self conscious about my Spanish. So the imposter syndrome there was just off the charts. But it was
Yeah.
great because it did really throw me in and made me think, yeah, actually, this is fun. I didn't realize how much this could be, a good thing. But yeah, that imposter syndrome at the start can be a real kicker.
It definitely can be.
And what about then when you started into the PGCE or your teacher training years? What were some of the things that you worried there before you went on the placements?
Well, I know whenever we had went in and we were given our timetables for our placements, I'm told that our timetable was only 50% of an actual teacher's timetable. And within maybe 2 weeks of my placement, I was thinking, how would I ever manage a full teaching timetable if I can just about keep up with a 50% timetable? I just didn't understand how teachers can plan for so many classes in the day and in the week and maybe only having one free that day or no frees the day prior. So I definitely think that was my biggest worry, was maybe time management and being able to schedule and be well prepared for classes, because I'm definitely an over planner. I couldn't go into a class and just wing it. I had to have everything set in stone. I had to have my PowerPoint, my resources to know exactly what I was doing every minute of that lesson. And because I had that imposter syndrome, I didn't want there to be that awkwardness where I didn't know what I was doing for the last 5 minutes of the class. So yeah, that was definitely a worry of mine. I think I overplanned at the start, because you don't know. But definitely it was the going in and thinking, how am I ever going to have a full timetable and how will I ever cope with it?
And then that's something that you will have got better at with experience, but it's still something that, I mean, if you asked a lot of teachers who had been teaching 1 year, 20 years, 30 years, what do you find difficult? I'll bet a heck of a lot of them would say trying to manage my time and get everything planned and marked and prepped and everything. So I think that
Oh,
was a very, I
definitely.
think, I think that was a very astute challenge to be noticing straight away from your teacher training.
Oh, it was definitely the first thing that I noticed. And I would say my subject knowledge too. I was a bit panicked in terms of, would I be teaching the right content to a class? Because I know English, well, with maths anyway, you have the right answer at the end of it. Whenever you go and study a novel in English, you can take it any direction that you want. There are guidelines and there's certain things that, yes, we do follow, but it's so interpretive of how you teach it as a teacher. So that was definitely a worry too. I was thinking, how would I ever come up with great activities that were engaging to the class? How can I hold their engagement in class? So yeah, you definitely have so many worries starting out.
Do you know, you're so right. In my role as literacy coordinator, I have looked at GCSE specifications for other subject, and my subject is English, the same as you. And when I looked at some other specifications for GCSE, I was amazed by just how detailed the content was. It was so much more prescriptive than English. So I think that
Hmm.
fear of, am I interpreting this the right way? Am I giving them the right information when there's so many different valid interpretations of texts? that are out there,
Yeah.
especially newer ones, where there isn't maybe the canon to kind of fall back on. That can definitely
No.
be a fear.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, we are going to talk more about some of the challenges that everybody faces at the start and then move into additional challenges that people face when we come back after these messages.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Are you a teacher who has concerns about your students' low reading levels? Are you also worried disadvantaged students won't be able to catch up? The online reading development program, Dreambox Reading Plus, adapts to a student's skill level, accelerates reading progress, and helps students acquire a wide vocabulary. The patented technology develops reading fluency and supports the transition to increased text complexity from Key Stage 2 to Key Stage 3 and 4, where language and vocabulary are more challenging. You can try the program with a free 4-week pilot today. Search Reading Solutions UK to find their website and request your free pilot.
How do we stop teachers marking books on their kitchen table on a Sunday night instead of wanting to spend time with their family? Is live marking truly cutting-edge practice? What if I told you that I could provide evidence of verbal feedback and its impact on student outcomes? Now, traditional marking, time and time again, is reported as the #1 reason why teachers leave the profession. It trumps behaviour issues and teacher salary. In Guide to Feedback, I share 9 case study skills that demonstrate 9 different ways to provide marking and feedback, all evidenced by student outcomes. Now, not every school will be ready for this, but hopefully you are ready to start your Feed Up and Feed Forward journey.
The Teacher Toolkit Guide to Feedback is out now, and you can get an exclusive 30% discount when you order Teacher Toolkit Guide to Feedback from Bloomsbury.com. Just use the code TTRGTF at the checkout. That's TTRGTF, and it expires 30th of November. Happy reading.
Do you ever wish you could sit down with other teachers and delve into the challenges and opportunities we face? Well, that's exactly what Table Talks at BetUK is all about. Join small roundtable discussions based on your selected topics to share insights, learn from peers, and tackle the big issues in education, all in a sponsor-free environment. This is your chance to connect and collaborate like never before. Be part of the conversation at BetUK in January 2025. Visit uk.betshow.com to learn more.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
Schools Week focuses on 6 key findings from an annual parent survey. According to the article, most parents said school absence fines would not deter them from taking their child on holiday during term time, with the majority saying it's fine to skip classes to get away. Half of parents say they oppose the policy of fining parents when their child misses school for more than 5 days without good reason or authorisation. Parentkind is calling for the government to review the pricing and marketing of family holidays. The Parentkind survey of all 4 home nations reveals other key findings, which include a quarter of parents considering home education for their children. 2/3 of the parents who have considered homeschooling had children eligible for free school meals, compared with 1/3 from non-free school meal pupils, raising concerns again about the gap between those from disadvantaged backgrounds compared to their non-disadvantaged peers. 1 in 5 parents think that there are too many GCSEs taken by pupils, but only 1/3 of parents thought maths should be studied until the age of 18. 90% of parents thought school reports were useful, and 89% felt this way about parents' evenings too. But support for homework was only at 70%. Nearly 4 in 10 parents said homework causes arguments, which rose to 48% for free school meal eligible pupils. Full details of all the survey's findings can be found on the Schools Week website. An ITV report says the Welsh Government continues to change its position on how to teach English reading. An investigation revealed that a method which has been discredited for decades is being widely used in schools across Wales. The method, commonly referred to as cueing, sees children being told to use cues like pictures or the context of a sentence if they are stuck on an unfamiliar word. The Welsh Conservatives forced a debate in the Senedd based on the investigation, and the government admitted the guidance needed to be clarified, with a spokesperson saying to ITV News that cueing should not be used to tackle unfamiliar words. However, in an interview, the Cabinet Secretary for Education, Lynn Neagle, said cueing could be used to teach reading with phonics as the building blocks as part of a balanced approach. Scientists are concerned that using cueing methods with children whose English skills are already behind when they start school only makes things worse. According to the ITV report, some secondary schools say more children than ever are arriving at school in Year 7 unable to decode words, and that reading ages are below chronological ages. Full details of the report can be found online. In Scotland, the BBC reports that IT failures in Edinburgh meant primary school pupils had access to pornography and videos of executions at public libraries. Filters designed to block inappropriate websites were not activated on PCs accessed using child library cards. According to the BBC, the City of Edinburgh Council believed the issue was resolved earlier this month, until it was discovered that this revised safety measure could also be easily bypassed. All public computers in the city's libraries were taken offline again until the issue could be rectified. Younger pupils are sometimes taken to libraries to use computers during the school day. A parent reported the breach to their child's school, and this was passed on to the council. School-issued iPads were taken away from pupils to check they were secure. A spokeswoman for the City of Edinburgh Council said it was reviewing its security measures. Finally, students at the University of Cambridge have been offered heart screenings after a 20-year-old undergraduate suffered a sudden cardiac arrest. The student collapsed and died whilst hiking in France in 2023, but friends have since raised more than £55,000 to pay for ECGs for hundreds of students. The original goal was to raise £7,000, but now many more will be able to access the test to check for undiagnosed issues. This has been your Teachers Talk Radio News with Jo Fox.
Okay, welcome back. I'm here tonight with Shauna Blady, and we are talking about whether or not there's a right time to take on extra challenges in a teaching career, and if taking on extra challenges too early could be a really great benefit, or what the pitfalls might be with that. So, Shauna, we had chatted a little bit there before the news about PGC placements and some of the things that you were worried about before, challenges you were expecting beforehand. What about then whenever you started teaching? How have the first couple of years been? Have the challenges remained the same, or have there been any additional challenges or things that you maybe weren't expecting, or things you thought might have been challenging that have actually turned out to be okay?
Well, I remember on my PGC placements, the first 2 schools I went into, they were split campuses. So I was always really worried about arriving late to a class on maybe a senior campus. Or vice versa, if I was traveling from the senior site over to juniors, I was always thinking, what if I get stuck in traffic? What happens if I'm not there in time for my class starting, or my class are already in? What do I do? So I always remember that was something that really stressed me out during my placements, because it happened in both placements, which isn't overly normal, because not many schools are split over 2 campuses. But one of the main things that I found triggered was probably the teacher judgment on my placements. I was always worried, not necessarily about, going in and teaching in front of students, but when you're a placement student, you have to have that class teacher in your room. So I always worried about what they were thinking. What was I doing? Was it right? Was I telling the class exactly what she would maybe tell? So that was definitely a worry of mine as a placement student anyway.
That makes perfect sense. And then that's something I think as we continue in our careers and become more experienced and more established, it's good for us to bear that in mind, that if we're in there, we're not saying anything, we might feel that we're there as a helpful presence and not realize that that can be really intimidating for a new teacher in the room.
Yeah, definitely. I remember, I'll never forget this. It was in my second placement, and I had an older teacher. I don't want to be ageist or anything, but she was a good bit older, near retirement. She was down to, I think, 2 days a week, and I was teaching her year 9 class. And I remember doing this really hands-on activity with the class. I think it was on debates and things like that there. And at the end of the lesson, she said to me that I don't work for CBBC, and said that I was like too fun for the class and that they're there to learn. And I stood there and I thought, oh dear, what have I done? And I instantly went home, and I was talking then to my lecturer. She had quite a few like check-in days where she would say, like, share your views, what's happened that week. And I remember sharing this with her, and she couldn't believe it. So she scheduled to come in then and watch me for one of my lesson observations. And since I was teaching 2 year 9 classes, she says, keep that lesson until I'm in next week. And I will come in and watch that exact lesson and tell you what you could maybe improve on, and maybe what that teacher thought wasn't great. And when she came in, she couldn't believe it. She thought it was a really good lesson. And obviously, she said every teacher has their own interpretation of teaching, what they think is correct. But it was whenever she said, I'm not there for them. No, the students aren't there to have fun. And I'm like, yes, they are. They're not meant to dread going into your class. It's not meant to be boring. You should try and make it as entertaining and as fun for the students as possible. So that's something that will never leave my mind now.
Well, the good thing is you're never going to say that to any new teacher in your care.
Yeah.
So
and
that's a challenge you've faced that is going to have a beneficial impact on anybody that you are then nurturing through that stage of their career.
Yeah, definitely. So I definitely think that if then the time comes where I kind of have to mentor a student teacher, I will be able to, guide them in a way that's more uplifting and building their confidence in the classroom, rather than knocking it. So yeah, that was definitely that's something.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there has to be learning content in there, but there must have
Yeah.
it couldn't have been just fun and all fluff and no substance if your
Oh,
tutor then was saying, no, that was a really good lesson.
Yeah, I think it was because quite a lot of it at the start was group work, and they were up and they were moving from different sides of the room. They were finding the information themselves and different like notices up that I had pinned to the wall. But she said like she prefers, pen to book, and she stands up and teaches. But it's every teacher is different, I suppose, and it's just one of those things. It was a learning curve. And I was glad that my lecturer did come in and kind of reassured me that no, that was still and a productive lesson for the students.
Yeah. Do you know, I'm sure if you canvassed all of the people in the teaching profession, we would all have stories about not just pupils, but colleagues, teachers and non-teaching staff who have presented additional challenges that we maybe didn't expect. You expect challenges
Yeah.
from the pupils. You expect that. I mean, one of my early teaching experiences, I was in a staff room and a very tall, who felt double the height of me, which isn't hard, male teacher at the time, bent over me in the staff room, pointed his finger in my face and shouted, swearing at me to not sit in his seat ever again in the staff room in front of everybody. And honestly, I was absolutely mortified. I thought, I'd wondered what would I do if a pupil swore at me. I didn't realize that it might happen in the staff room. That was, so, other people can be challenging, but thankfully there
Yeah.
was a woman there in the staff room who was an older teacher and had seen people, as she told me afterwards, she'd seen people try to bully people before, and she wasn't having that in her staff room, and she just stood up and gave him what for, essentially, and told him he was not to speak to anyone like that ever again
Yeah.
in school. And that was a bit of a challenge. So there are sometimes moments where you're going, okay, so I wasn't expecting this challenge today. I thought that the pupils or the classroom would be the difficult bit. But you know what? These things do then teach us. And we
Yeah,
do then think about what we can do differently.
yeah, bouncing off my point of having the two campuses during my placement school, another aspect was not getting to know the teachers that well because of the split campus. There were two staff rooms, which meant you weren't really seeing the same staff every day. So I felt like it was quite isolating too. And I noticed whenever I was there, that would have been like a few of the remarks the teachers would have made, that they said having the two campuses aren't ideal because it's harder for them to gel together as well as a community. So I definitely, whenever I was in my placement, I struggled that way, getting to know other teachers and having those teacher conversations, hearing about their day, kind of, because it was harder then to get to know, because every time you went into the staff room there was a new face and you couldn't remember the name of the teacher that you were talking to the day before because it'd been a while since you'd seen them before that.
Do you know, that actually fits quite well with something that another teacher has spoken to me about. So Paula has been a guest on my show before. She is a head of maths in a post-primary school as well. And she said, when I asked her about what early additional challenges she took on at the beginning of her teaching career, so not just the ones that we all have to face, but what extra things she had signed herself up for, she talked about how she took on so many extra things. At the start, she did hockey every Saturday, which she says nearly killed her, as well as doing Duke of Ed and running the Scripture Union. And she said the experience was mostly good, for a reason that I'll come back to, which links in with your point. But she said, so she said the experience was mostly good, but some aspects of it, like she had to umpire matches, which she says stressed her out so much she cried every Friday night thinking about it. It doesn't sound like a good experience to me. It sounds like a fast losing profession. But she said it was beneficial to do that early in her career because now timetables are heavier, her home life is busier, she wouldn't have the time, so she never would have had the experience if she hadn't pushed herself at the start. But she said that the reason she found it so beneficial was because it was a great way to get to know other staff and pupils and really feel part of the school, which I suppose then does make you feel more motivated to stay if you're going to feel valued as a team and you feel like you're all in those hockey trenches together. That is a way of, she did have to challenge herself to do it, and bits of it sound horrendous, but one of the key things that she said was beneficial about it was getting to know other members of staff, and that can really provide you with so much support and so many lifelines whenever things do get really tough.
Yeah, definitely, because they're going through that day-to-day schedule like you are. So when you're stressed and it's coming up to maybe exam times or tracking, they're going through that too. So having those conversations at lunchtime is a great way to, release that stress and just talk about it and know you're not the only one. But I remember my first year out, the school that I taught in, the staff were very young. I think there were maybe 10 NQTs. From what I can remember, yeah. So there was a huge cohort of the staff were NQTs, and I'm still best friends with some of them today, and we still meet up, which is nice. So having other teachers going through it at the same time as you, we were all going through our induction portfolios and kind of keeping each other right. It was really uplifting. I know in my first year as well, one of the teachers I actually trained in Ulster in English, we got this job in the same school. So we were two new English teachers in the one department, which was really nice because that wouldn't happen often. So we already had each other. So then it was easy for us to flourish in that school together.
Oh, that's brilliant. And when you both were members of department, NQTs in the same department together, were you given a big range of classes, or how did that work? Because that can be quite challenging as well at the start of the career, is looking to see what you're given in terms of your timetable, because that shows as well how much the school trusts you in a way.
Oh, well, my first year it was definitely a challenge. So obviously English is my background, and I was given a year 13 and 14. It was CPLD, so Child's Learning and Development. No, sorry, Child's Play Learning and Development. I remember thinking I didn't even study health and social at A level, and I was thinking, oh, I don't have the correct subject knowledge for this, but I did it anyway. And whenever I went into the school, I realised that the year 14 course had never been taught before in that school. So I was a new teacher out. I was teaching a new subject to me, but also in the school. So I had to, kind of make my own connections within that industry. So then I had to maybe go on to Facebook and find other teachers teaching that course. So there's a lot of pages out there on Facebook. You can get the English teaching, I think it's called. I can't remember the name. Or you can get drama ones. And then I was able to find one then for this course. So I was able to communicate then with other teachers on Facebook who was teaching this subject over in England. And some of them were really good to me because they sent me examples from their school. They were able to guide me in how to market and what I needed to do in order to, get those good results in the school. So that was definitely so challenging because I wasn't just taking on English as my subject to, I was teaching, I think, to year 12. So I had year 11 and 12 English language and English literature, and then I had year 13 and 14 CPLD. So that was the biggest challenge. So I thought actually having that in my first year out, I think that was the best thing to happen to me, because now I can push myself further. Like, so my second year out, then I got drama and performing arts. That was different because I had a head of department. It had been taught in the school for years, so I had plenty of guidelines. But I definitely have now the confidence to go into new school like this year and bring that subject with me and be able to teach it on my own and not stress as much. Once if I didn't have that my first year out, I feel like it's easy for you to, drift into, your safety net and just stay in your own subject and, not branch out. So yeah, I looking back, I'm happy that happened, but at the time, I was definitely sleep deprived.
It sounds like it was a really positive experience overall looking back, but I cannot believe how calmly you just said, yeah, so I just did it, when you're talking about going in as an NQT and teaching a subject at A level with
Yeah, I
no
think
in-school support, with a subject that you've never studied before and that's never been taught in the school before. That's a huge challenge.
yeah. To be fair, my students in that class were brilliant. They really were. I think having a great class in front of you too, and they were supportive. They kind of knew I was young, and we just had a really good relationship. So I think that really helped me. But yeah, here only for Facebook, I couldn't have done it,
Do you know,
which is interesting enough.
but it sounds like that has then shown you what you can do. So then you have been able to go on and push yourself and try different things and branch out and have a bigger depth of experience then that you can offer to schools in the future, which is really beneficial. But I'm not surprised you were sleep deprived at the time.
Definitely, and I remember that school was an hour away from where I live, so I was up early in the morning. I was late home in the evenings, and you were nearly leaving school, driving home for that hour, quickly having dinner, and starting into work again because you
Oof.
don't have enough time in the school day to get everything done, especially when you're trying to make new content for a subject. And I remember I started, was it the August? I think we started back the 27th of August that year. So I only had like 3 days before the school term started to actually get ahead of what I was teaching. And, I wasn't standing up in front of the class with nothing to do. Because I'm quite OCD with my planning. I have said before in the podcast, um, I over plan because I just don't want to, have that time wasted, because you only have so much time with the students in front of you. And I'd rather, go through it early on in the year, get most of it done, and then have that time at the end, to go through and have revision periods with them. But no, it's definitely benefited me in the long run.
3 days is not long for an over planner to plan.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. No.
I mean, I thought that my first year was challenging and showing a lot of faith from the school I was in, because my first year out, I got a part-time temporary job, and I was given A level, and the department was big. They didn't need to take that chance on me and give me A level experience, but they wanted to give me the benefit of it, so that then when I went forward, I would have that, which I found scary enough. And that was with a department that were fantastic and supportive, and and books I was familiar with for the most part as well. Doesn't seem scary at all. I remember one of my colleagues at the time saying to her husband about how I had started into the school, and he said, perfectly understandably, "Oh, is Amanda teaching just the Key Stage 3 classes then?" And she was very on my behalf, saying, "No, she is not. She's teaching A level, and she's doing this, that, and the other." And by the following year, I was the lead teacher for journalism, which was a new subject to the school. So I've been in that position quite early on, not quite in the NQT year though. And I know a previous guest of mine he was made head of department in his first year out. Can you?
Wow!
I can't imagine being a newly qualified teacher and a head of department all at the same time. So frankly, the challenges that I had when I started off now seem like absolutely nothing compared to what some of you have faced. And I just think that it sounds like this has been really beneficial for you, and for you, it must do wonders for your level of confidence as well, if things come up, to think, well, do you know what? I've already done that, so I'm sure I can take this on.
Yeah, definitely. I think I push myself now. If opportunities do come up in schools, I put myself forward, because I'm like, oh, I can make the time. I'll always have time to do this and that. I know last year, I stepped in as a senior hockey coach. So that was giving up my Saturday mornings for matches, and then your Monday and Wednesday afternoons for training. And then I also stepped into head of year for year 10 for the end of the year, and only for having, that confidence in my first year out to take on new responsibilities. I wouldn't do it now. I think I would have shied away and said, no, I could never do that. And even with the head of year, I pushed myself, because one of the main things you have to do as a head of year is stand up and take an assembly every week. And I can't talk in front of people, and everyone judges teachers. How can you not stand up and talk in front of someone if you do it every day? But it's different when you're standing talking to maybe a class of 30, 15-year-olds. But whenever it comes to taking an assembly, I'm never worried about the maybe 100 students in the room. I'm worried about the sixth form tutor standing around thinking, what is she going on about now?
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely have that. I definitely try and push myself out of my confidence zone, because I am so socially awkward, and I do want to try and further in that area of my development.
I think loads of people listening will be able to connect with that and relate to that. I know I do. Whenever I first started doing whole school literacy training or standing up and doing assemblies, it is the imposter syndrome kicks in, and you start thinking, oh my goodness, are these people going to be going, especially I was teaching in a context where some of the people around the sides of the room had taught me, and I thought, oh, I don't want to embarrass myself in front of them. Did you feel, since you're talking about, speaking out and that sometimes being difficult, which people don't always get when it is a teacher, as you say, they think that we're always completely confident and in control when it comes to public speaking. Did you find it challenging, the idea of coming on the podcast?
Oh, 100%. I've been worried about this ever since I was asked to do it. Even all day today, I was sitting thinking, oh no, it's only 2 hours to go. What am I going to do? But yeah, I definitely am I've lost my train of thought now. A panicker. I do stress myself out, and whenever it comes to putting myself out there. I know when I've been asked to, do readings, maybe friends' weddings and things like that there. I always panic because I'm like, how am I going to stand up and talk in front of all of these people? So yeah, no, I can't talk in front of people, definitely not. It's good that no one's standing here watching me right now, or else I would definitely have a blank brain and I wouldn't be able to talk.
Well, I'm very glad that you did have the confidence based on all of those early experiences to come on and talk with us tonight. And we are going to have a quick pause for some messages, and then we're going to talk about what some of the benefits and potential drawbacks are of taking on these challenges early in a teaching career. We've already mentioned some of the benefits, so we'll dive deeper into some of those when we come back.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading!
Are you a teacher who has concerns about your students' low reading levels? Are you also worried disadvantaged students won't be able to catch up? The online reading development program, Dreambox Reading Plus, adapts to a student's skill level, accelerates reading progress, and helps students acquire a wide vocabulary. The patented technology develops reading fluency and supports the transition to increased text complexity from Key Stage 2 to Key Stage 3 and 4, where language and vocabulary are more challenging. You can try the program with a free 4-week pilot today. Search Reading Solutions UK to find their website and request your free pilot.
How do we stop teachers marking books on their kitchen table on a Sunday night instead of wanting to spend time with their family? Is live marking truly cutting-edge practice? What if I told you that I could provide evidence of verbal feedback and its impact on student outcomes? Now, traditional marking, time and time again, is reported as the #1 reason why teachers leave the profession. It trumps behaviour issues and teacher salary. In Guide to Feedback, I share 9 case study skills that demonstrate 9 different ways to provide marking and feedback, all evidenced by student outcomes. Now, not every school will be ready for this, but hopefully you are ready to start your Feed Up and Feed Forward journey.
The Teacher Toolkit Guide to Feedback is out now, and you can get an exclusive 30% discount when you order Teacher Toolkit Guide to Feedback from Bloomsbury.com. Just use the code TTRGTF at the checkout. That's TTRGTF, and it expires 30th of November. Happy reading.
Do you ever wish you could sit down with other teachers and delve into the challenges and opportunities we face? Well, that's exactly what Table Talks at BetUK is all about. Join small roundtable discussions based on your selected topics to share insights, learn from peers, and tackle the big issues in education, all in a sponsor-free environment. This is your chance to connect and collaborate like never before. Be part of the conversation at Bet UK in January 2025. Visit uk.betshow.com to learn more.
Okay, you're back with us, thank you. And we are with Shauna Blady tonight. We are chatting about challenges and the benefits and potential pitfalls of taking on additional challenges early in a teaching career. So Shauna, we've chatted a bit about what some of the benefits are and the increased confidence that it can give you and the depth of experience that can enable you to go for other positions later on. What else do you think these challenges can teach you, or how could they make you a better teacher?
Oh, you put me on the spot there. So what other benefits?
Yeah, like what other skills maybe can it give you that are useful personally or professionally whenever you're taking on these challenges? I mean, one of the things that I did was in my first year out, I went to different training events and things to learn more about GCSE journalism, which meant then in my second year I was able to offer that and became the only teacher in the school introducing GCSE journalism at that point to a new, well, it was as a new GCSE subject, so there were no resources, a bit like you when you were teaching your year 14 class. And I had to forge my way through it. It wasn't my comfort zone. It wasn't my subject. The vocab was different. The jargon was different. And I messed some things up as well. You know, I was used to, with an English GCSE, we would do the coursework and controlled assessment and submit it at the end of the 2-year course. Whereas with this journalism one, they did their coursework in their first year of GCSE. I held on to it, went to submit it in the second year, only to find out it should have been submitted a year before. So that taught me a lot, because I had to fess up essentially. I had to I phoned the exam board and said, look, this is a mistake I've made. This is on me. It's not on my students. And this is, I thought this was the biggest crisis in the world. I didn't submit their coursework. Are they going to have to do it again? Are they going to have to do something different? And I contacted the exam board, who went, this sort of thing happens. Don't worry, we're not going to penalise the student for you making an admin mistake. And I just thought, woo, okay. So that's not the end of the world then. Spoke to the principal of the school at the time, and he went, oh yes, we've all done things like that before. And then I was like, okay. So I was able to go with him to say, this is a mistake I've made. This is what I've done about it. I've contacted the exam board. And then I was never scared of contacting the exam board ever again, because I did it so early on that then that's become a skill anyway for me, that I know, okay, I can go to people and ask for help. I can admit whenever I've got something wrong, and then realize it's not going to be the end of the world. There will be solutions. There'll be people who can help. There'll be ways around things. So that definitely helped me at the beginning.
Yeah, actually last year, whenever you say about forgetting to do something, I was near the end of the performing arts course, and I was going through my checklist, and I was like, gosh, we finished up 2 weeks earlier than I expected. Couldn't figure out why. I was gathering in all the coursework. I told the class, this is great. We have all of our coursework completed. And next minute, I was double checking the specification, as I do about 1,000 times throughout the year. You can never check the specification too many times. Don't care what anyone says.
Agreed.
But I then realised I had missed a 600-word essay, and I could not believe it. I was like, what am I going to do? I have to go in and tell this class that they have another piece of coursework to submit. And I think in terms of, marking and getting it in and then sending it away to see you, I needed it done within that week. And then obviously I had to give them corrections too. So it was panic mode going in the next day, tell my head of department, I'm so sorry, but I'm going to need to take 2 of your classes this week to go over this piece of coursework. And she was so chilled about it. She was like, why are you stressing? She was like, I hope you weren't up all night stressing about this. Do you think I've went through the last 30 years of my teaching and have never forgotten to do something with the class? So whenever you have those conversations with, other teachers, and realize we all make mistakes at some stage, it's just inevitable. It's going to happen at a time in your career. So I hope that my mistakes are happening now, and then I'll have, a more chilled career later down the line. But I highly doubt it. I know there'll be something. Something always changes, but yeah, I'll never forget that thinking. And my main worry was telling the students. I actually wasn't too bad telling the head of department, but whenever I was like, I have to go in and break this to, my class of 10, that they have another piece of coursework, because they'd worked so hard all year and they thought they'd finished, and having to go in and say, I'm sorry, I messed up, we have another piece of work to do. But they were understanding, and they were like, yeah, they just got on with it. So yeah, that was definitely so I'd say a benefit is making sure that you read the specification 1,000 times, and if you think you've read it too many times, read it once more just to be sure.
Yeah, I suppose we were both very lucky then that we were able to learn from these experiences, and they did come from taking on these subjects, or to a stage very early on. We were getting that experience, which was brilliant, but it is challenging. And I suppose we were lucky that whenever we faced that difficulty, we were supported.
Yeah, definitely. And I know as well, this year, taking on drama and performing arts and kind of acting as, the head of that department in my current school, I had to go in and I had to record the devised pieces there in September. And I remember having to do it in the school and thinking, I have no idea how I'm going to do this with, sound and lighting, but only from having, contacts from other schools and being able to message, my head of department from last year and one of the other teachers, they were able to, guide me and say, oh, you should contact this here company. They actually do sound and lighting. They leave in all the equipment. They show you how to use it. You just rent it out for 2 days and you've got your pace. And I know as well, I needed blocks as well for the performance. And I was able to just stop in at my old school and say, can I borrow these for 2 days? So, having those contacts in different schools is great because you can't do it on your own. So I think coming out as a new teacher, you have that panic where you're like, I need a job. I need a permanent job. I can't, go around these different schools. I can't just be subbing for the next, 5 to 6 years. But having done it now for 3 years and been in 3 different schools, it actually is benefiting me more because I've made more contacts in the cohort of English and drama. And now like I can go back and I can ask for help from those other schools and they're more than happy to help you. So having those contacts is great.
Yeah, that's a really useful connection to have. And it is something I hadn't considered when we were thinking about the benefits of some of these challenges, that having those contacts in those different schools from the challenge of not having a permanent job straight away has actually served you really well here.
It definitely has, because I know we ordered blocks in for the performance, but they still haven't arrived. So they'll be there for the next one. But, we need it in order to stick to the schedule and getting the other pieces of coursework and the scripted done. We needed to get that recorded in September. So having those contacts and being able to, borrow equipment from other schools. And like everyone's more than happy to help. I suppose it's just, asking for the help and not like hiding away and thinking, how can I manage this on my own? So it has benefited me as much as I would love to have a permanent job. Having that experience of going around different schools, even seeing how other teachers teach, I think it's great. I think you should nearly in your first few years, go around different schools, see what different departments do, and then how you could maybe bring that to then your permanent school and say, I really like this. This worked well. I saw this done before. And schools they love hearing it. I know the school like I'm in currently, they're always interested in hearing like from my previous experience and what I've experienced before. So yeah.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more that some of the best CPD time I have had has been observing lessons in other schools and in other subjects, because you pick up so many things where you think, gosh, I never would have thought of engaging them that way, or I can see there that's something that we could use in the English department. And seeing that experience from other schools is fantastic, and that makes you more marketable. So that has to be a benefit there.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think so. Just yeah.
Yeah, no, keep going. What were you going to say?
No, I was just gonna say, just having that time and getting the experience. I know every school, they teach different novels, and even in English, it's about going into a new school and saying, "Oh my word, like I've taught this novel before in the school, or the students really engaged with it. They loved it," and being able to then bring those different ideas then to that new school, and when they embrace it too, it makes you feel like you're then part of that cohort. And then you just feel like you fit. But no, I would definitely say, and I would recommend to any other NQT, don't worry about getting that permanent job straight away. Go out, find your feet, because you think, I know myself, I would have said in my first year out, I loved my first school. I enjoyed that year, but then whenever I went to my next school, I enjoyed it even more, and I met new friends, and now I'm in another school and I've met even more new friends and I'm enjoying it just as much. So you can get stuck in like that. I don't know, I think where you just go into your job and you're just doing it every day. But I think having that time, to make new contacts, because whenever you're in the job, you don't have time to, go out and see what other schools are doing. Like it's not like different English departments from other schools have time to meet up and see like what each school's doing and what they're doing well. So yeah, I think that would be something that we should all do.
That's gonna make people who haven't found their fit yet or who haven't got a permanent job offer yet at all, I reckon that's gonna resonate and make people feel quite comforted, Shauna. Like,
Yeah,
look at okay, it's challenging, but look at the positives in that.
I know,
Look at
because
what you're gaining from it.
yeah, you are starting every September and you're thinking, oh, I'm a newbie again. But when you go into the schools, everyone's so welcoming. And within a week, you feel like you've been teaching there for years. So it really doesn't matter. And even the students I have now, I feel like I've known them for 3 years. The stories they tell you, and just from them coming into the classroom, they're all just so welcoming.
Well, that also, Shauna, must say a lot about you as a teacher that you have taken the time to get to know them, because that would not necessarily always follow that within a week students
Yeah,
are feeling comfortable enough to tell you about themselves. So that says a lot about you as well.
yeah.
Um, just thinking about that and starting off and the career progression and thinking about how things go. Another person who has spoken to us about this topic of challenge and early challenge in your career is Nikki, and she is head of music and also member of senior leadership team. And she spoke to me about challenges that she faced, and she said that she was really fortunate because she was given additional responsibilities at a young age and at a young stage in her career. So the same as you and same as me to an extent. And she said that was a privilege because not everywhere, not every school that you go into will take that chance. And even now, she might be nervous about handing over that level of responsibility that she had as an NQT to someone who's beginning now. But that she said that her head of department sat down with her to work out exactly what had to be done every month, and that support made a huge difference. And despite the fact that she said, yes, it took its toll, it has a cost, she had no free time at the start at all, but now she has this wealth of experience and it has allowed her to progress further in her career more quickly than she might have done otherwise. So for her, she says the sacrifice was worth it. And that just sounded quite similar to what you were saying there about developing this wealth of experience from the different schools that you'd been in and the different experiences that you've had, that now will hopefully allow your career to progress more quickly as a result as well.
Yeah, definitely, because I know there during summer, whenever I I knew I had this new job role of taking on drama and performing arts, I was worried because I was thinking that's two different specifications that I would be teaching in the year that are new to me, and I needed to kind of make sure that I was doing every aspect, because I know last year I taught 50% of the course. I knew 50%, but because I was teaching alongside another teacher at the same time, we were doing two parts of the course at the one time with the students. So, knowing then how to structure the year, making sure I was leaving enough time for each of the different components, I was really worried about that. But my head of department from my last school met up with me during summer and kind of helped guide me with the timeline and said, okay, so you need to be doing this by November, you need to be doing this by Christmas, and so on. And I think like that was great support to have before even going in and starting my job. And I know in terms of whenever I was in my placement skills as well, you said about how not many schools give you that experience of taking on these extra roles. And I know as a placement or as a placement student, you don't really get A level experience whenever you're in doing your two placements during your PGC training. So I remember my second placement, it was a grammar school, and the head of department let me take his year 13s and 14s, I think for 2 periods a week. So he was still teaching alongside me as well, and he was at the back of the room, and he was then giving me feedback at the end of lessons. But like half of my other cohort, my PGC cohort, they weren't getting the same experience because the schools didn't maybe trust them to teach A level. So some of them were maybe getting like a year 11 GCSE experience. So whenever I was going into my first year of teaching, I had that experience behind me, and I think that's what maybe made my application stand out a bit more, because I was able to say, well, in my placement skills, I've already taught A level English. So yeah, I was very lucky in terms of what skills I've been in and what they've offered me and what they've allowed me to teach and do within their skills.
That's something really important, I think, for middle leaders like myself and senior leaders to bear in mind is to look at, okay, well, you're feeding this forward. We're looking to see what these teachers are going to go on to do. So give them that level of challenge, but support them as they're going through it. And then the whole school and the whole profession will bear the fruits of that.
I know, especially whenever, like, you don't know if, for example, that placement student, you'll need them in like 2 years' time, you know, like with maternity covers, or sometimes teachers do move around quite often, you know, where they're maybe trying to get to schools, you know, closer to their own home, where they've been travelling for years. And then you don't realise when you actually need that placement student again, or when you see their name popping up and you're thinking, I should have maybe supported them earlier on in their career, and they might, you know, be more willing to come back and then help the school. Because I know if the school that I did my placement in had a position and needed me and like contacted me and said, I would go and help them out, because I know that they supported me while I was there, and, you know, they give me opportunities. So I would like to, you know, give that back to them whenever they're then in need. So yeah, it's things that you don't actually realise that actually help a placement student.
That's really important, I think, to hear and to talk about, is that the impact that has, and then you felt valued, so therefore you value that school and would go back and help them out. I think something that you had mentioned before as well was the idea that we all have when we first come out of, oh my goodness, I have to get a permanent job straight away. I have to get a job now. Another person has been in touch, another teacher has been in touch. She is head of biology, another Amanda, and she's messaged in to talk about how we can't underestimate just how challenging just getting through the early years of teaching can be if the school is challenging itself, and how it can be actually slightly overwhelming. We've talked a lot about the benefits of challenge, but that we need to be realistic about it as well, about what level of challenge we can take on. And that will be different depending on what school you're in, what your personal circumstances are, how far you have to travel, all sorts of things, what the school itself is like, what the level of support's like within the school. And she said that when she first started as a teacher, she was one of the many who said yes to absolutely everything. So she agreed to be a STEM ambassador. Her subject's biology. She decided she agreed to teach ICT, to teach geography. She ran an eco club, absolutely anything to get the permanent job. She ran the science club because none of the experienced teachers wanted to do it, which she says now might have been a sign that she had missed. But she said for her, and this isn't something that I would have thought of as an English teacher, but she said the main challenge as a science teacher is that you will have one specialism, so hers is biology, but you nearly always end up teaching the other two subjects as well. So for her, that's physics and chemistry. She said that you end up teaching outside your specialism, which science teachers, she says, they don't often talk about how uncomfortable that can make them. And that for her as a science teacher, behaviour was a big challenge at the start, because they have practicals, they have experiments. And that is something that we don't have to face in the English room. You know, I know that they say the pen is mightier than the sword, but, you know, it prevents a much less immediate danger than a Bunsen burner would. So she had this to cope with at the beginning, and she said that she sobbed a lot in her first year, because when she was in her first year of teaching, she had all Key Stage 3 classes, no GCSE or A-level experience, so didn't get the support that we did, and that she had bottom streams for every single one of them, with really challenging behaviour and different needs in that classroom, because her head of department gave the top classes that were easier to manage to the experienced teachers. And she said she wasn't totally experienced. She wasn't comfortable with all the practical experiments that she had to do. And specifically, she remembers a year 10 class of only 15 students. And she said she thought, happy days, this seems great, such a small class. Whereas now she would be going, oh, alarm bells, why have all these boys been put in one class together? So there was only 2 or 3 girls and the rest all boys. And as an NQT, as we all are, and hopefully as we remain, her main motivation was, she was like, right, I'm going to motivate these students. I'm going to inspire them. I want them to love science. That's the most important thing. So she planned all these experiments that would be exciting, and, you know, putting metals into water to see the reactions, and all sorts of things to try to make science exciting, to inspire them to love science, all these practicals that she says now, as an experienced teacher, she would not do. Or she would do demos of them herself, but not try to have the entire class doing them all at once. Because she says, looking back, it was actually dangerous. They were stealing bits of reactive metal to make sparklers. She said they stole a load of rubber gloves and blew them up so they were 100 times the size of a hand, and then waving them in the window at her all, look, hello. And she said, you know, she knew about counting out the big stuff and counting it all back in, but she didn't think about the smaller items that they might pocket because of her inexperience. So she said that was such a big challenge on its own, that taking on extra challenges would have been far too much. She was just having to get through those. But part of that is because we've been talking a lot about support, and she said she didn't get support at the beginning when she reported bad behavior. For example, she had a student swore at her in class, and she was like, right, okay. She spoke to that student's head of year, because apparently this was happening in several subjects. The head of year said, I don't know, no problem, I'll speak to him. He came back into her class the next day and told all his friends very loudly that they could say whatever they wanted to her, because the head of year just put his arm around him and said, don't worry, mate, I'll have a word with her. So
no.
She didn't get the support when she was dealing with really challenging behavior. Luckily, her head of department found out and exploded, reactive metal styly. And so she was able to then step up and speak for her and help her out with that, which meant then she was able to go forward. And she's had to date, still has, a brilliant career, and has presented at the Education Authority. She's taught across the world. She's done all sorts of exciting things. But I do think we need to also bear in mind, not everybody gets those positive experiences that we had, and sometimes trying to take on lots of challenges might end up putting people off, or they might feel like if they're not taking on all of those extra challenges because they're dealing with other things themselves, or dealing with a particularly challenging context, maybe, they'll see it as, oh, am I not doing as well? But actually, it's going to be different for everybody, and maybe not taking on some additional challenges might be the absolute right choice for somebody, depending on the level of support or things that they have going on in their own lives.
Yeah, I definitely think that is something that you experience a lot of at the start, because I remember my first year out, if you were one of the new teachers and you weren't taking any extracurricular activities, or you weren't doing you weren't maybe in school every day until 5 o'clock, you kind of felt like they were not talking about you, but they were maybe judging you in terms of, why aren't they supporting the school in these extra ways, especially whenever it comes to, the school's values, if it is about extracurricular activities. But at the start, you're so focused on, managing what's happening in your classroom, like your first responsibility. And I know whenever you're coming out, there's all, your educational needs that you need to consider of, all your students in the classroom. And it does become overwhelming, and especially whenever you're trying to figure out how a school is run. Like, I know my first year, we had to run reports every Friday, staff briefing times, and staff development days. We had to do certain courses. So you are overwhelmed at the start, and it's not just with what's happening in your classroom, it's everything else outside, in terms of, dealing with parents as well, ringing in, dealing with maybe students in your form class, and, pastoral elements. So it is definitely triggering, I think, for a new teacher as well, coming out and trying to, make their place in a school and show that they can do so much without trying to burn yourself out at the same time.
Yeah, I think that burnout definitely is something that we need to bear in mind, that we would need to avoid. So the more support we can give teachers facing these early challenges, as well as the additional challenges they might want to take on, that's going to be the key thing, really, to making sure that we have all these fabulous teachers staying in the profession once they've completed that difficult teacher training stage. we want to keep them as long as possible. We are going to have a few final messages, and when we come back, we're going to think about advice then that we might give, or advice that we've heard that's resonated with us in terms of how to get the most out of those challenges without becoming overwhelmed and burning out.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, publishers of professional development books and resources that support great teaching and learning in schools around the world. Don't miss out. Level up your professional development today and visit johncattbookshop.com to explore the full range of titles. Use the code JCTTR2425 for 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Are you a teacher who has concerns about your students' low reading levels? Are you also worried disadvantaged students won't be able to catch up? The online reading development program, Dreambox Reading Plus, adapts to a student's skill level, accelerates reading progress, and helps students acquire a wide vocabulary. The patented technology develops reading fluency and supports the transition to increased text complexity from Key Stage 2 to Key Stage 3 and 4, where language and vocabulary are more challenging. You can try the program with a free 4-week pilot today. Search Reading Solutions UK to find their website and request your free pilot.
How do we stop teachers marking books on their kitchen table on a Sunday night instead of wanting to spend time with their family? Is live marking truly cutting-edge practice? What if I told you that I could provide evidence of verbal feedback and its impact on student outcomes? Now, traditional marking, time and time again, is reported as the #1 reason why teachers leave the profession. It trumps behaviour issues and teacher salary. In Guide to Feedback, I share 9 case study skills that demonstrate 9 different ways to provide marking and feedback, all evidenced by student outcomes. Now, not every school will be ready for this, but hopefully you are ready to start your Feed Up and Feed Forward journey.
The Teacher Toolkit Guide to Feedback is out now, and you can get an exclusive 30% discount when you order Teacher Toolkit Guide to Feedback from Bloomsbury.com. Just use the code TTRGTF at the checkout. That's TTRGTF, and it expires 30th of November. Happy reading.
Do you ever wish you could sit down with other teachers and delve into the challenges and opportunities we face? Well, that's exactly what Table Talks at BetUK is all about. Join small roundtable discussions based on your selected topics to share insights, learn from peers, and tackle the big issues in education, all in a sponsor-free environment. This is your chance to connect and collaborate like never before. Be part of the conversation at BetUK in January 2025. Visit uk.betshow.com to learn more.
We are in our final section of tonight. That has flown, Shauna. We are talking about challenge and how taking on extra challenges early in your teaching career can be beneficial, but also how we need to be mindful of the potential pitfalls and how people could become overwhelmed. So, Shauna, how do you feel now going forward? Are there challenges that you're hoping to take on in the future? I mean, we have talked about how challenge doesn't just disappear, as you were saying about your media studies teacher earlier, who was then, applying for other roles within the school. Like, further challenges will come up. So are there challenges that you're hoping will come up for you?
Well, obviously getting a permanent job. So that's going to be a challenge on its own. But I would definitely say I would like to do more outside of the classroom. So challenge myself a bit further and maybe taking on the proper role of a head of year and not just stepping in for a couple of months. It's something that I would look towards doing. I know at the minute it's acting kind of head of department for drama and performing arts. I would enjoy doing that even later down the line. So it's just, having those opportunities now that could build those foundations and knowing that you can do it. And getting those opportunities near the beginning of my career is great. But I'd just say, just go for it. And if there's something that, worries you, there's always someone else in the school that can help you out and kind of set you in the right direction. There's never anything that's too challenging. I think in terms of maybe take on one thing in a school, I wouldn't like try and divide yourself up into 10 different places within the school. I think pick one thing and do it well, and do it for a while, and then maybe try and then add to your schedule a bit more, because I know you have to have a life as well outside of work, and it can be consumed so quickly with our career, I think, because there's no off button. I know tonight I should be maybe sitting working TA tracking assessments, but there's always something you can be doing. So I think maybe picking one thing, doing it well for a while, and then progressing further into something else later on would be one of the main things I would advise.
That sounds very sensible. And it sounds really similar to advice that Erica Luke gave whenever she was on. I say every show I do since Erica's, I seem to refer back to something that Erica said on hers last December, but it's because she's so full of good advice. So she did a show with me where she was talking about how she's been teaching now for 30 years. And she was talking about, I know, and she was talking about how not just to survive, but how to thrive and not burn out as a teacher. And I just think it's fabulous that some of the things that she was talking about, Shauna, after 30 years are the same sorts of things that you're talking about in your third year. So obviously this is advice that is timeless, and you already have enough experience to be able to offer that insight and be able to say, try not to take on too much at once. Erica talked about how you could say yes to everything, but you have to try to think about what are you actually able to give to do well, as opposed to burning yourself out trying to do absolutely everything. And she talks about getting that balance between saying no to things as well outside of school, and thinking about, okay, so my children want to go or have been invited to all these birthday parties. Let's ask them, which ones do you actually want to go to? So then we can spend some time together as well, and that's okay. And I would say the same thing. Don't feel like you have to take something on just because other people are, or because you feel like it's what you should want to do.
Yeah, definitely. And I know in terms of taking on Saturday matches in my last school, that doesn't suit everyone. That suits me because at the moment I don't have, other obligations outside of school. But if you are a parent and that's your Saturday morning to spend with your children, or with your other family, you don't have to do it. There's other parts in school that you can go towards and help out in. So I would definitely pick what suits you, because if you don't enjoy doing it, you're not going to do it well. And it's the same, we say the same to students as well. Pick things whenever they're going in and picking their GCSEs, pick subjects they do enjoy, because they're going to spend the next few years learning about it, and you don't want them to regret their choice. So you want them to have that enthusiasm for the subject before they die out and realize how much work they have to complete.
We're so good at giving that advice to students, and we are so not good at following that advice, listening to it ourselves.
Definitely not. Looking back, it's like, oh, if only I listened to myself. But no, it's definitely about taking on things that you enjoy so that you can do it well. And, the students realise, if I was standing there on a Saturday morning with a grumpy face and my arms folded, they'd know, oh, Miss Nanny does not want to be here, any more than we do on a Saturday morning. But like, if you're showing up, you're enthusiastic, you're, trying to boost their confidence and say, we're going to win this today, there's a complete difference in, the outcome of results. So yeah, I think, students know when a teacher is enjoying what they're doing. They can read you so well. Whenever you go into a class and you could be sick, they can tell within the first 5 minutes. So they can tell if you don't enjoy taking that extracurricular activity too. So there's definitely no hiding.
No, there's not. Definitely not. I remember a student, it was my first year. Yeah, it was my first year of teaching. I had a GCSE class. I was teaching them To Kill a Mockingbird. I was coughing and spluttering, but determined that we were going to keep reading. And the girls kind of whispered amongst themselves and then nodded at each other. One of them just stood up, walked over, took the book out of my hand and went, "Please sit down, Miss Kinsley Smith, and we will read the book." They took it in turns to read it. I was like, "Thank you."
Yeah. They just knew you couldn't keep going. I know.
Yeah.
I remember my first year out, actually, it was a Friday afternoon, and I had my year 14 class, and I was so unwell. But I just, you have that fear of going and telling someone as well that you're sick. I always have that doubt, like, do they actually believe that I'm sick? Like, do I need to prove to them that I feel really unwell? So I stayed the whole day and continued teaching, and I got to, I think, my second last period, and I had year 14, and I had to just say to him, "Copy this off the board, I'll be back in 2 minutes." I had to run, threw up in the toilet, down from my classroom, walked back in, and I just like had to keep teaching. And they were like, "Miss, are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm 100%, just need a wee glass of water here." But they definitely knew something that was up. And then it wasn't until later on in the year, then I did tell them about a time walking out, and they were like, "We know when that was, because we were all talking about how you were for the rest of the class, and we knew from the moment we went in you were like the same, bubbly self." And like I would always like start class maybe talking to them, for a few minutes. But no, they just knew I wasn't informed that day. And so yeah, they can definitely tell.
They can. And you know what? I have
Yeah.
found in my years of teaching now that I'm very honest with the pupils about any extra challenges that I'm facing, something like not feeling well, or, the other week I was at a family funeral, and the next day whenever I was talking to my class, I was like, "Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not entirely with it today. Here's why, here's what's happened. And I'd rather just tell you the truth now. So then, if it was you, I would want you to feel like you could tell me, and I want to feel
Yeah.
like I can tell you." And, everyone has extra challenges that are going on in their
Yeah.
lives. And I think that it humanizes you more. As you said at the beginning, sometimes as pupils especially, we do see teachers as robots that are just there and will get on with everything. And it is good for them to see that we face these human challenges as well, the same as they do. Don't
Yeah,
think that's a
definitely. And
bad
I think
thing.
that is why my media teacher stands out to me so much, because she was really relatable in the classroom. She came in, she had the chat with you, she wanted to hear about your day, what was going on. And then you sometimes had other teachers where they just didn't have that, relationship with you. You nearly felt like they didn't care about what was going on the outside. They just cared about teaching you the spec, and that was it. And I think that's what I've taken a lot of consideration into, in my own career. Like, I love having that relationship with the students, and I know whenever I start off my each year and I'm trying to get to know my new students, I always like test myself after my first lesson to see how many names I've remembered at the end. And the students get so delighted whenever you can remember all their names. And I remember one experience I had was it was my year 10 class, my first year out. I had a seating plan all done out, and they said that if they wanted a new seating plan because they didn't like the one I had set, and they said, "If you can name all of us, we will take it. We'll just sit here for as long as you want. But if you can't name all of us, then we get to move." And I was like, "Right, okay." And
Challenge
within
accepted.
I was like, "No bother, I know all of you." I went around the room and I was able to name every single student. And like, I had only met, it was the second week of term, and you don't see them every day. And I remember going around, and the disbelief on their faces was unbelievable. They just couldn't believe that I knew all of their names. And like, I was standing up there, I didn't have the seating plan in front of me, and they just couldn't believe it. And they were like, "Okay, you win." I said, "Yep, I do." I would have agreed to that if I knew I was going to fail, but I just knew I could
Absolutely.
get all their names. So yeah, they just had to take it in the chin, and they sat in those seats then until I changed them again. So yeah,
See?
I definitely think it's having that relationship with your students and making them feel valued, and each and every one of them in the classroom.
I love that we started with you talking about your media studies teacher and how we've come full circle, and we're back talking about her again now, and how that has obviously shaped who you are as a teacher as well, which is fantastic. And I would just finish up by saying I think one of the main things we've talked tonight, linking in with that, is about how support is the key to getting the benefits of challenge, so that people feel that they can take on the challenges and learn from them rather than feeling overwhelmed and burning out, because we want to keep ambitious people in the classroom to progress in their career in whatever way is right for them. And I think that the things that you've talked about tonight and the challenges that you faced and the overwhelming positivity that is coming from you about them, but realistic at the same time, just, I think, has summed us all up nicely. So thank you very much for coming on tonight, Shauna. It has been brilliant having you.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for all of your insights into this topic, and to our other contributors as well who had sent in their experiences. There will, as always, be more excellent shows on this week from Teachers Talk Radio. That is us for tonight. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you can join us again for the next Sunday Late Show.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.